You could learn their attachment style. You could read every book, give them all the space the internet swore would bring them closer, become the calmest, safest, most understanding person they have ever met. And they will still pull away. Not because you failed, not because you were not enough, but because you have been trying to solve the wrong person this whole time. For years you have asked the same question. Why can't they just let me in? Jung would tell you that is the wrong question. The real one is this: what is an avoidant actually loyal to? Because they are loyal to something, fiercely, and the day you see what it is, you are going to realize you were never in a relationship with the person you thought you were. They were loyal to their safety. You were loyal to a ghost. Only one of those ever sets a person free. Let me show you what Jung understood about this nearly a century ago, long before attachment theory had a name. Here is the story you have been told, and I want you to notice, as I tell it back to you, how much of it you already believe. The avoidant partner is wounded. Somewhere early, a caregiver taught them that reaching out led to disappointment. So they learned to stop reaching. Psychologists call the moves they make now a deactivating strategy. When closeness rises, they shut the feeling down and create distance, not because they are cruel, but because intimacy trips an old alarm. Underneath the distance, the story goes, is a frightened person who genuinely wants love and cannot let themselves have it. So if you stay patient enough, safe enough, consistent enough, the wall comes down, and the real them, the one you can feel is in there, finally steps out. And if they leave, no contact will do the work, because eventually they will miss you and come back. I need you to hear something. All of that is real. This is not internet folklore. John Bowlby built the foundation. Mary Ainsworth watched it happen in real children in a study called The Strange Situation. Hazan and Shaver carried it into adult romance. Researchers like Mikulinsa and Shaver mapped the deactivating strategy in detail. You did not misunderstand the science. You studied it well. And this is not some rare affliction you had the bad luck to stumble into. When Hazan and Shaver first measured attachment in adults, back in the 1980s, roughly 1 in 4 people came back avoidant. 1 in 4. The pattern you have been carrying as your own private torment is one of the most common relational operating systems on Earth. You were not cursed. You walked into statistics. So let me introduce you to someone who studied it just as well. Let us call her Elena. Elena did everything the model prescribes, and she did it beautifully. When he went quiet, she gave him room instead of chasing. When he pulled back, she stayed warm and steady. She regulated her own panic so she would never be the anxious one. She became, by any measure the books offer, a secure and safe harbor. Because Eleanor followed the model exactly, therefore the model made a promise. Give him enough safety, and he should slowly, cautiously, begin to let her in. So here is the question that should bother you, the same way it started to bother her. Why did the exact opposite happen every single time? Look closely at what the belief predicts, because this is where the first crack appears. If avoidance were only fear, then the cure would be obvious. More safety, more closeness, more proof that you are not going anywhere. Fear responds to reassurance. That is how fear works everywhere else in life. So the closer you got, the safer they should feel, and the more they should relax toward you. But that is not what the research on deactivating strategies shows, and it is not what you lived. The pattern runs backward. The more closeness rises, the harder the withdrawal comes. More love in, faster pull back out. Elena noticed it before she had words for it. Every time she got close enough to feel him soften, he would vanish within days. The tenderness itself seemed to be the trigger. Sit with how strange that is. In the fear model, your love is the medicine. In reality, your love was reading to his nervous system as the threat. If you have lived this exact pattern, comment, "The closer I got, the faster they ran." I want to see how many of you know this one from the inside. Jung saw this long before we had the vocabulary of attachment. He understood that there are people for whom being deeply known does not feel like relief. It feels like an invasion. Hold that thought, because we are going to need it. Because the safety model just failed its very first test, therefore we have to put pressure on the second thing you were promised. That underneath it all, they love you, and they are only scared. The second crack is quieter, and it hurts more. The belief says that under the avoidant's calm exterior is a person suffering just as much as you are, secretly aching, and that when the relationship ends, they will feel the loss and return. But the research on avoidant attachment points somewhere uncomfortable. After a separation, avoidant partners often report less acute distress, not more. Sometimes they report relief, the reunion fantasy, the one where they finally realize what they lost and come back changed, frequently never arrives the way the story swore it would. That is not because they are monsters. It is because the deactivating strategy is not a mask over longing. For many, it is the nervous system returning to its own equilibrium. The distance is not the absence of peace. The distance is where their peace lives. The belief predicted longing. The evidence keeps showing you equilibrium. And now the third crack, which is the one that turns this entire video around, so stay with me. The load-bearing belief, the one holding up all the others, was never really about them. It was about you. It sounded like this, but I can feel it. I know there is a deep, sensitive person in there who truly loves me. I can sense who they really are. Jung had a warning for exactly that certainty. He described a state he called psychic inflation, where the ego quietly over-identifies with an archetype, in this case, the all-knowing intuitive, the one who sees what others miss, and in doing so it loses its footing in objective reality. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he wrote about inflation as projections, in his words, coming home to roost. The feeling of certainty is real. What it is certain about is the question. So let me ask you the one that cracked everything open for Elena. What if the depth you are so sure you sense in them is not coming from them at all? Comment, I could always feel who they really were, if that is the belief that kept you holding on. Be honest. That was the hook. Because all three cracks point the same direction. Therefore the real question was, never why won't they let me in? The real question is, who was I actually in love with? And to answer that, we finally have to name what the avoidant is truly loyal to. Every attachment style is loyal to something. That is what I call the loyalty map. And once you can read it, people stop being confusing. The anxious heart is loyal to connection and will trade its own peace to keep it. The secure heart is loyal to the bond itself and can hold both closeness and space without panic. And the avoidant's loyalty is the hardest to see because it is a loyalty to an absence. So let me answer the question in the title as plainly as I can. The avoidant is not loyal to you. They are not loyal to the relationship. They are not even loyal to their own happiness. They are loyal to their emotional safety. And their nervous system learned, early and deep, that safety is distance. Safety is autonomy. Safety is not needing anyone, because needing was where the original wound came in. To a self built that way, closeness does not register as warmth. It registers as danger. This is not a wall-hiding love. I need you to really take that in, because it is the piece everyone gets wrong. It is not a wall you can dismantle to find the treasure behind it. The distance is not covering the personality. The distance is the load-bearing structure of the personality. It is the thing that let a frightened child survive by deciding once never to depend on anyone again. Which gives us the paradox at the center of all of this, and I want to name it because every real insight has one. Call it the loyalty you cannot compete with. You cannot outlove a nervous system whose entire definition of safety is the absence of exactly what you are offering. The more devotion you bring, the more clearly you become the threat. Comment, loyal to the distance, if that one just rearranged something in your head. Because their loyalty was never available to you. Therefore, every ounce of love you poured toward it had to go somewhere. It did not vanish. And where it actually went is where Jung turns this whole story around, because the next part is not about them at all. It is about you. Jung noticed something about how human beings fall in love, and it is not flattering, but it is freeing. We do not fall in love with a person. We fall in love with an image we cast onto them. He called the carrier of that image the anima in a man and the animus in a woman, the unlived inner opposite, the idealized figure we all carry inside and then discover, apparently, in someone else. In a letter, he put it simply. We dream, he said, out of what lies between us and the other. The beloved becomes a screen, and we project our own hidden depth onto it, and then we fall to our knees in front of what we ourselves painted there. So here is what I call the phantom partner. The deep, sensitive, secretly devoted soul you were so sure was inside your avoidant. In large part, you built that. You projected it. And here is the cruelly elegant reason the avoidant made such a perfect screen for it. They gave you so little real contradicting personality that there was almost nothing to interrupt the image. The silences, the mixed signals, the blank spaces. You filled every one of them with your own longing. The less they actually gave you, the more freely you could project. Emptiness is the perfect canvas. And this is the part I most want you to hear, because it is the beginning of the vindication. You were not delusional. You were not stupid or needy or too much. You were doing what every psyche on earth does. You have a real and genuine capacity to love. You simply aimed it at a screen and mistook the picture for the person. That is also why your intuition felt so unshakably certain. Back at the third crack, it was certain. It was reading something true. It was reading your own inner world and calling it theirs. Because you were loving a projection, therefore losing them threatened something far larger than a relationship. It threatened you, and Jung explains precisely why the pain cut that deep. When they pulled away, it did not feel like disappointment. It felt like dying, like the floor of the world dropping out. And you have probably been ashamed of that reaction for a long time, because it seemed so out of proportion to what was actually happening, which was a person not texting back. Jung would tell you the size of that pain was never the size of the love. It was the sign of something structural. He borrowed a phrase, participation mystique, to describe a state of unconscious identity, where two people are so merged that you genuinely cannot feel where you end and the other begins. It is the emotional water an infant lives in before it has a self, and it can quietly reappear in adult love. That is what had happened to you. Your identity had dissolved into their emotional state. When they were warm, you existed. When they withdrew, you did not just feel rejected. Some deep layer of you registered annihilation, because the self you were running on was partly made of them. That is why the panic was so total. That is why you did things that still make you wince. The overtexting, the bargaining, the 3 in the morning messages you swore you would not send. I want to reframe that memory for you right now because you have carried it as proof that you are weak. It was not weakness. It was two selves that had never been properly separated, and one of them walking out of the room. Of course, it felt like survival. In a sense, it was, which means the work in front of you is not learning to detach from them, and it is certainly not learning to need less. The work is coming back into your own outline. Jung had a name for that too, and we will get there. Because your boundary had dissolved, therefore you started doing something that looked exactly like love, but was quietly doing the opposite. Jung had a name for that as well. Every one of us wears a mask that we show the world. Jung called it the persona, and behind it, we keep a room full of everything we do not want to admit we are. He called that the shadow. The trap is simple. The more polished the mask, the more lives in the room behind it. For a lot of people who love avoidance, the mask is the healer, the fixer, the endlessly understanding one, the safe harbor, the person who is so good at holding space for someone else's pain. It is a beautiful mask, and I want to name, as gently and as honestly as I can, what tends to live in the room behind it. Underneath the caretaking sits a disowned need, the need for control. Not villainous control. Nothing like that. It is anxiety management. If I can heal them, if I can get them to finally open up, if I can be the one who reaches what no one else could reach, then I will finally feel safe. So the caretaking was, in part, an attempt to regulate your own nervous system through their behavior. That is what I call the rescue reflex, and it is not a flaw in you. It is a shadow, and a shadow only runs you while it stays in the dark. Jung wrote a line in Memories, Dreams, Reflections that belongs taped to your mirror. Everything that irritates us about others, he said, can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The distance that tormented you was also a mirror. It kept showing you your own relationship with safety, with control, with worth, and you kept looking past it, at them. Here is why this is the opposite of an accusation. The moment you own the rescue reflex, you are no longer at its mercy. You were never as powerless in this as it felt, which means you have far more freedom to walk than the story ever let you believe. Comment. I was trying to feel safe too, if you are ready to be honest about that one. It is a strong thing to admit, not a weak one. Because both of you were unconsciously chasing the very same thing, safety. Therefore, you were not really in a relationship at all. You were locked in a pattern neither of you chose, and it is the oldest pattern in the human psyche. Watch what happens when two opposite survival strategies collide, because it explains everything, and it is almost mechanical. One person reaches, the other retreats, and the reaching and the retreating feed each other in a loop. You step into the role of the pursuer, the one who chases, closes distance, seeks reassurance. And the moment you do, you cast the other person into the role of the hermit, the one who withdraws into the cave. The more light the pursuer shines into the cave, the deeper the hermit goes. This next part will sting, and then it will set you free. Your pursuit did not fail to reach them. Your pursuit manufactured the distance you were chasing across. You were, without ever meaning to, powering the exact retreat that was breaking your heart. You do not have to take my word for it. In 1951, Jung answered a letter from a man tormented by guilt over a failed marriage, a man who had tried desperately to fully understand his wife. Listen to what Jung told him. If you struggle too much to penetrate into another person, he wrote, you find that you have thrust him into a defensive position, and resistances develop because through your efforts to penetrate and understand, he feels forced to examine those things in himself which he does not want to examine. And decades earlier, in 1915, he put the knife in even cleaner. Understanding, he wrote, is a fearfully binding power, at times a veritable murder of the soul, as soon as it flattens out vitally important differences. The core of the individual, he said, is a mystery of life, which is snuffed out when it is grasped. Read that again and feel it land. Your love was trying to grasp them completely, to finally understand them all the way to the bottom, and to a person whose entire safety is built on not being grasped, that love arrives as a siege. This is not blame. A pursuer only exists because a hermit is retreating, and a hermit only exists because a pursuer is advancing. You are two halves of one figure, but only one of you can end the dance on purpose. The hermit cannot, because their safety depends on the cave. You can, which means you are holding the only exit the entire time. That is not a burden. That is the whole game handed to you. And one more thing about why it had to be this person. Jung understood that we keep unconsciously reaching for the parent we could not reach. If early love came from someone distant, then adult distance does not feel like a warning. It feels like home and like unfinished business. You are not only fighting for them. On some deep level, you are trying one more time to make the distant one finally stay. Because you are the only one who can step out of the dance. Therefore, everything you have been waiting for them to do was always yours to do. Jung called that step the most important work of a human life. Before we get to that step, look at the specific shape your own hook took, because the projection holds on in one of three ways. See which one is yours. The first is the potential chaser. You are not in love with who they are. You are in love with who they could become, the version you can see so clearly, the one that would exist if they just did the work. That is the anima or animus, aimed straight at the future. You are dating a person who does not exist yet and may never. The second is the debt collector. You stay because you have already invested so much that leaving feels insane. All those years, all that patience, all that hope. To walk now would be to admit it was for nothing. That is not loyalty. That is sunk cost wearing loyalty's coat. The third is the proof seeker. You need them, specifically them, to finally choose you, because if the most unavailable person in the room picks you, it proves you were lovable all along. That is the old parental wound demanding its verdict from the one judge least able to deliver it. Because whichever one you are, the projection is the engine underneath. Therefore, the real question is whether a person can ever put it down. And the clearest way to answer that is to look at two people who lived this exact split and ended in completely opposite places. History is full of people who were loyal to their own distance, and they did not all end the same way. Watch two of them. Franz Kafka spent his whole life inside the exact pattern we have been describing, and he documented it himself in hundreds of letters. He fell for a woman named Felice Bauer, and the closer they grew, the more he needed to run. He got engaged to her, then broke it off. Years later, he got engaged a second time and broke it off again. He wrote over and over that he needed solitude the way other people need air, that closeness felt like it would swallow the self he wrote from. His father had been overpowering and cold at the same time, and Kafka spent a lifetime arranging his world around the safety of distance. He never put the pattern down. He chose the cave, and he died in it, mostly alone. The distance kept him safe, and that is all it ever did for him. Now watch a man with the very same hunger for solitude take a completely different road, because there was someone who craved distance so deeply that he eventually built himself a stone tower just to be alone in it. Because Kafka and this second man started from the same wound. Therefore, the gap between how they ended is the whole point of this video. And the second man is the one whose words you have been listening to this entire time. Carl Jung was not describing avoidance from the outside. He was describing himself. In 1913, after his break with Sigmund Freud, Jung fell into what he called a state of disorientation. His friends dropped away, his work was dismissed as rubbish, and instead of reaching for people, he went inward. Into a stretch of years, he named the confrontation with the unconscious, a near isolation in which he wrestled with his own depths and was not always sure he would come back. He craved solitude so completely that in 1922 he bought land at a quiet edge of the lake at Bollingen and began building a stone tower with his own hands, a place, he said, where he could simply be alone. This is the man diagnosing you. He knew the pull of the cave from the inside of it. But here is what he did that Kafka could not. He turned the solitude into work instead of a hiding place. He used the distance to withdraw his projections rather than to escape other people. And by the end of his life, he could write the exact sentence we are about to build your freedom on. Because Jung walked out of the same cave that Kafka died in. Therefore, the way out is not a theory. It is a road a real person has already walked. Here is the map. The exit was never to make them secure. It was never even to go no contact, so they would miss you, because that, if you are honest, is just the pursuer playing a longer game. The projection is still running. You are still waiting for the cave to answer. The real exit is the step Jung spent his life describing. He called it individuation, and its engine is the withdrawal of projections. Near the end of Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he wrote that emotional ties still contain projections, and that it is essential to withdraw these projections in order to attain to oneself and to objectivity. Then, the sentence that names your whole situation. Emotional relationships, he wrote, are relationships of desire, tainted by coercion and constraint. Something is expected from the other that makes him and ourselves unfree. Unfree, both of you. That is what the dance actually was. So here is the process, and I call it calling the projection home. 3 steps. First, separate the image from the person. Take a page and draw a line down the middle. On one side, write who you believed they were. On the other, write only what they actually repeatedly demonstrated. The gap between those columns is the phantom partner, and that gap was never theirs. It was always yours, on loan. Second, redraw the boundary and end the participation mystique. This one is daily and literal. Each time you feel the pull to reach for them, name one feeling in the room that is theirs, and one that is yours. Out loud if you can. You are teaching a psyche that forgot where it ends to find its own edges again. Third, turn the rescue reflex around. That enormous, real capacity for care that you aimed at someone who could not receive it. Take 10% of it this week and aim it at yourself, concretely. One thing this week that you would have done for them, done for you instead. The healer finally heals the person who actually asked, because the projection was always yours. Therefore, taking it back costs you nothing real. It only ends the illusion. And on the far side of that illusion is the moment this entire video was built to hand you. I am not going to pretend this is clean, because there are 3 ways people take everything I just said and quietly stay stuck. Watch for yours. The first is the weaponized diagnosis. You take the word avoidant and you use it as a magnifying glass to keep studying him, analyzing him, explaining him to your friends instead of leaving. That is still pursuit. It is projection with a better vocabulary. The second is the strategic silence. You go quiet, but you go quiet at them, waiting, checking, hoping the cave finally calls. The projection is still running the whole time. Silence aimed at a reaction is not freedom. It is the pursuer holding its breath. The third is the inflation flip, and it is the sneakiest, because it feels like healing. You swing from I am too much to I am the evolved one, and they are just broken. That is the exact psychic inflation from the third crack, the same lost footing, now wearing a halo. Real clarity is warm and a little humble. Superiority is just the wound in a costume. Name these when you feel them. Catching them is not failure. Catching them is the skill. Step back for a moment, because this is older than you, older than attachment theory, older than Jung. Human beings have been mistaking their own projections for love for as long as there have been human beings. Every age has had its lovers kneeling in front of a screen, pouring devotion into an image they painted themselves, and calling it fate. The names change, the dynamic does not. Jung came to believe that learning to withdraw those projections, to see another person as they actually are, instead of as the carrier of our own unlived depths, was not only private healing. He thought it was the slow, difficult way that human consciousness itself grows up. So this thing you are doing, this work of calling your love home from someone who could never hold it, is not small, and it is not only yours. You are doing, inside one lifetime, the oldest work there is, because you are now standing at the edge of that work. Therefore, there is only one thing left to show you, the moment it all becomes clear. Let me tell you where Elena ended up, because it is not where the fantasy wanted her to go. She did not win him back. That was never the win. What happened was quieter and far larger. She stopped trying to decode him. She drew the two columns. She practiced finding her own edges. She turned the care around. And a few months in, something she had waited years for finally happened, except it happened inside her instead of inside him. The panic went silent, and for the first time she could look at him and see him exactly as he was. No phantom, no potential, no verdict pending. She felt the whole picture click into one clear frame. And standing in front of the real him, at last, she felt nothing pulling. That is the clarity, and the clarity is the whole victory. The prize was never being chosen. It was finally seeing. Put it all in one frame. The avoidant is loyal to their safety, and you had been loyal to a picture you painted yourself. The day you can hold both of those at once, the dance is over, and you are the one still standing in the room. Now, I'm going to stop talking about them, and about Elena, and talk to you. You were never too much. You were pouring an ocean into someone loyal to their own drought, and calling your own reflection their depth. That was not foolishness. That was a heart working exactly as it was built to work, aimed at the wrong screen. So turn it around. The person you have been trying to reach this entire time, the one worth all of that loyalty, all of that patience, all of that depth, was never the one in the cave. It was the one standing outside it in the daylight, holding the light and wondering why no one ever came out. They were loyal to their safety. Be loyal to your clarity. Only one of those two things has ever, once, set anyone free. So tell me, which one were you? The potential chaser, the debt collector, or the proof seeker? Name yours in the comments. Naming it out loud is the first light out of the cave, and someone reading is going to need to see that they are not the only one. If this handed you language you did not have 30 minutes ago, subscribe. This is exactly what we do here, every week. We take the thing that has been quietly running your life, and we drag it into the daylight where you can finally see it. And next, we turn the mirror the other way. Jung on the other half of this dance. why the anxious heart keeps choosing the cave in the first place, and what the pursuer is truly loyal to. You may find it is the most important video I have ever made for you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension.